Good evening. So I'm going to start the safety presentation portion now. This is the safety meeting briefing, Peterson Air Force Base, September 27, 2022, by Dennis Dalton, Safety Officer. The title of this one this evening is Preflight After Maintenance. The original authors, Jay Flowers and Kevin Clover, operations lead from the National Safety Team office. I generally get these once a month. Sometimes I use parts of them, sometimes I don't. Tonight I'm using probably about most of the presentation. It was quite lengthy. There was 30 slides. I got it down to 23. The objective for today's discussion: define and discuss what is airworthy, what is condition for safe operations, maintenance documents and entries, pre-flight after maintenance, ADs and AD compliance limitations as related to maintenance. How would you define airworthiness? Well, airworthiness is basically with everything it rolled off the factory floor with, and anything that has been added or altered since. FAA definition of airworthy, 14 CFR Part 3.5 contains the FAA's definition of airworthy. An aircraft with a type certificate, TC, is airworthy when it conforms to its US TC, is in a condition for safe operation, CSO. If a non-type certified aircraft is airworthy when is in a condition for safe operation. Each type certificate is considered to include the type design, the operating limitations, the certificate data sheet, the applicable regulations of this subchapter with which the FAA records compliance, and any other conditions or limitations prescribed or the product of this subchapter. A condition for safe operation, CSO, is a condition so as to operate in the manner intended by the manufacturer. That strip of duct tape on the wing covering up the fresh air vent on your Cessna 172 is not a manufacturer intended. As your mechanic, if you are not, ask your mechanic if you're not certain. Something as simple as hanging a GoPro under the wing could be catastrophic. One example that they cite here, main tires on a Citation 500 series aircraft are limited to plus or minus 5 pounds of air from that specified in the manual. Any operation of the aircraft with the air pressure limit out of CSO requires replacing the affected tire. An example of manufacturer history: the Thrush aircraft TC has had 6 owners since its original TC was approved. Each has revised or added new aircraft models to the TC. Changes to increase the max gross weight, changes affecting control surfaces, or a host of other items such as hopper size, winglets, GPS systems, etc., are monitored by the TC holders. The new TC holders and their alterations must go through the approval process of testing and certification with their new modifications. The originally approved TC will then be revised or a new model added. Consider who the manufacturer was at the time of certification. This is often based on aircraft serial number rather than the specific type, i.e. a 172. For example, an operation that may come up would be a flight with a door removed from your aircraft. Some manufacturers allow, some do not. Review the history of your airframe to fully understand what is allowed by the type design. Contact the TC holder if you have any questions about your operation of the aircraft. Understanding why the aircraft was being worked on. Remember, everything we're talking about here leads us to a better pre-flight. Knowing when wing spar was inspected may lead you to a more thorough inspection of the seats removed for that inspection. Inspection covers screws, control cable function, and alignment. We do this anyway, but the point being someone had this thing apart. Let's make certain they put it back together correctly. Define mechanical irregularity. Any deviation from the normal functioning of an aircraft component, no matter how slight or momentary. So what do you typically do with the maintenance irregularities you find? During pre-flight, contact owner, operator, aviation mechanic. During the flight, monitor, record, troubleshoot, record. Back at the hangar, record, advise of your discrepancy in the record, or form agreeable to the owner, operator, mechanic, and we have that all in place at the club. Once your work has been accomplished, verify CSO prior to flight, but that's for the mechanic at our club. Going into maintenance, owner, as a renter, you may not even know that the aircraft has gone into maintenance or why. Ask. Trusted facility, sure, this one is. Maybe the normal facility was not available. Well, yes. Trusted mechanic, new mechanic, alterations, add or subtract something from the aircraft, discrepancies, did any issues get replaced or repaired? Time limited items, what was done, annual, requires more extensive teardown, 100-hour, instruction aircraft. All this needs to be in the back of your mind. So ask yourself the following pre-flight after maintenance questions. What was the purpose? Were there issues found? Were they corrected? Is there a time hour limit? Annual, 100-hour, AD or SB? Has the aircraft been returned to service? Well, here's one logbook entry. Is it a valid entry? Let's look further. There's something missing right here. Uh, 14 CFR section 43.9 says for maintenance other than inspections, a description of work performed, the date of completion of the work performed, the name of the person performing the work, if other than the person approved or returning to service, the signature certificate number and type of certificate held by the person approving the work. The signature constitutes the approval for the return to service only for the work performed. You may have seen logbook entries with, according to the definition 14 CFR Part 1, the term RR means lower medium frequency radio range stations. So if the mechanic RR'd a component, he did not remove or replace it. These shortcuts in logbook entries are a good sign that the mechanic wants to just get the job done, over with, and get his money. Of course, that's not true here. He must give you a proper description of the work performed. I'm having a little jam up here. Let's see, where are we? Sorry about that. Okay, what logbook entries must contain? It says for, well, let's see, I already got back to this. I wonder what happened here. I think my computer's approval for return to service, inspections, okay. Huh. Well, that's the FAA stuff for you, I think. Man, it seems to be stuck. There we go. I think I got it now. Let's see. Okay, for inspections, I don't know, it just wouldn't go anywhere. For inspections, these are the minimum logbook entry components as well. Note, aircraft total time almost always is not takt time, and a lot of time it's not Hobbs meter time either. The aircraft records are the only place to be sure of total time, and usually only after some research. If the mechanic has discovered discrepancies and you choose not to repair them with that mechanic, he/she should sign off your logbooks as unairworthy and give you a list of discrepancies. You may then take it to another mechanic for further repairs. Remember, if you fly it, you must obtain a special flight permit, ferry permit, before flight. I've had a lot of stories about that. Mechanics say you should do this, that, and the other thing, but they wouldn't sign their book, and they just would go down the field to the other guy and have him do it. I mean, that's what anyway. For inspections, these are the minimum logbook entry components as well. Aircraft total time, see, this thing's getting me again. This thing's starting to act up. Wow, okay. We've reviewed what has been done. It's time to take a look at the aircraft. There are some interesting slides in here. This thing's being a real character. Okay, here we go. Airworthiness certificate. Displayed properly, legibly. Data from aircraft data plate needs to match the AW certificate. Registration, and in some cases would be listed in the AFM. The aircraft must have a current registration. Aircraft registration must contain the aircraft owner's name, must match the N number on the aircraft. Registration must be renewed every 2 years. Beyond that date period, the aircraft is not airworthy. Approved AFM. All aircraft manufactured after 1979 must have an AFM. Prior aircraft depend on category, weight, STC. Limitations can be found in the placards, AFM, POH, or TCDS of the aircraft. Placards must be in locations discussed in AFM or POH, be of readable character size and legible. Some manufacturers may require them to have a specific part number on them, like Piper. I don't see that on mine, but I suppose the bigger ones might. Type certificate held by the manufacturer is what the aircraft was approved under, found in the FAA database, radio station license. They used to issue those to us back in the 70s. I think I still have mine. Not needed in the US, needed if flying to Canada or some other foreign country. Tires, aircraft specific to AFM. Okay. Well, I see what's going on here now. Okay, airworthiness certificate has to be displayed properly, legible. See what's happening is the notes aren't coming through. That's what's going on. Well, that's real helpful. Let's see what I can do here. Because they had a description on all these. Here we go. Let me see if... Well, I got them on this one. Okay. Which part of these? Which of these are part of being airworthy? Static wick, determined by aircraft manufacturer or the avionics installed. Type design may require MEL may allow for operation with 1 or 2 missing. Electrical bonding and protection against static electricity. Logbooks, not required. A record of maintenance must be kept. POH, not all are approved. Some may be approved. VOR check, operation requirement is not an airworthiness issue. Transponder check, ATC transponder equipment installed must meet the performance and environmental requirements of any class of TSO C74B, Model A, or any class of TSO C74C, Model A with altitude reporting, as appropriate, or the appropriate TSO C112 Mode S, in order to be used during the flight. If Mode C capable, Mode C must be on. If Mode C is not accurate, repairs must be made prior to the next use. I had a student, I had a flight review with this one guy one time, and he flew back from Phoenix, and his battery was dead. And I said, well, you can fly under 10,000 feet or within 2,000 feet of the ground if above 10,000 MSL, otherwise you're illegal. Because he had ADS-B too, but that wasn't working either. Nothing was working. He didn't know it wasn't working. And I said, well, if it isn't blinking, it isn't working. And if you got a dead battery, I guarantee you that the transponder is the first thing to go. So that wasn't a very good flight, I wouldn't think. He wasn't talking to anybody either. If 24-month check is current, transponder must be on for normal operations in all airspace. If 24-month check has expired, you need to placard the transponder in op and note such in a record or logbook. Other affected instruments or systems must be placarded and secured. This same individual also had an old autopilot that would, whenever it was turned on, would do a extreme bank to the left and go down about 20 degrees pitch down, as well as 30 to 40 degree bank to the left. And he still didn't placard it. I said, you need to either take that out or take the fuse out or put some tape on it. Okay, static check. Required for various operations, IFR, airspace, ADS-B, etc. Equipment list necessary for weight and balance to be accurate. Seatbelt condition by either TSO tag or inspection procedure. GPS database dependent on airspace and operation. Okay. Hope this thing continues to work. We're almost done. You know, I went through this thing and it worked fine. Maybe I went through it too much and wore it out. Okay. Airspeeds. AFM cross-check. Airspeed indicator markings. Are they correct? Power plant limitations. Are they correct? Wind limited for startup. Wind limited for startup. Propeller limits. RPM, surface operation limits. Weight limits and CG. If an aircraft is altered, did that require a reweigh? Maneuver limits. Weight limiting, air category or class limited. Types of operation, VFR, IFR, known ice limits. Boots clean and polished. Fuel limitations, weight related, landing or takeoff. Gyro section, pressure limits. What are the limits? Altitude limits. Was the aircraft's altimeter properly tested to the service ceiling of the aircraft? Well, that's in your 24-month thing. Placards. Are placards in the right location, readable and correct? Supplemental, well, how would you know? Well, you'd have to look at the AFM, POH. Supplemental type certificates. Additional placards, changes to the AFM. Have any of you ever had to have your airspeed indicator replaced? Or, for that matter, any gauge replaced? Is the propeller on the aircraft of the approved type and serial number? I hope so. Aircraft have been sold with invalid propellers. I would believe that. When was the last time the aircraft was actually weighed? Time has shown us that most aircraft gain weight over time. They do. Okay, well, let's take a look to see how these two airspeed indicators really are. The gauge on the left is for your aircraft prior to mechanic fixing it or replacing it. The other is a replacement. What do you see is different? Well, the red line's off by 8 knots. Yellow arc is off by 10. The white arc's off by 13. on the top and 8 on the bottom. Left one has a blue line at 125. Right there. Must be for a twin. Okay. Would this be considered allowed by the manufacturer? No, but as long as the gauge has required markings to comply with the TCDS, AFM, POH, STC, the gauge could be used. Oh, was there a pilot static system inspection completed after the gauge was installed? There needs to be. In instances such as shown, the mechanic could make adjustments on the glass to reflect the TCDS, AFM, POH, STC airspeed markings. One additional mark would be needed to make on the glass and the case to assist the pilot in ensuring the glass had not been removed. My airspeed indicator on my aircraft has such markings on it due to a AD of stabilator flutter. The top of the green or top of the yellow was changed, as I'm sure Neil would make a comment about that one. Some of them, depending on the model, some of them had some weights on them. My 1960 does not have weights, but it has the airspeed marking corrections with nice little red tape on it and all this stuff. So, hey, we're almost done. One of the most ignored sections of the aircraft flight manual is the equipment list. If an update or repair required by a major repair and alteration form 337, you may have to update this section. If new radios were installed or old radios removed, you may have to update this section. If any of the above have taken place, the weight balance may have to be adjusted. Well, glad we got through that one. Yeah, sometimes making my own's a little bit more predictable. Okay, well, that's 22 minutes. Sorry about that. It's the end of the presentation, and now for the drawing. And I think next month's going to be Joe Schmaltz, and then I'll probably be back in person the month after that. Okay, thanks for putting up with this one. Okay.